Hey everyone, I'm Sylvester, welcome back to Stygian Arc. In today's video I'm going to try something a little different. I'm going to give you an insight into my journey through game development over the past 5 or 6 years. I'll show you a fair few of the games I've made over the years, but not all of them. Unfortunately I just don't have the files or footage of the very first games I made, but that's a blessing because they were all pretty terrible anyway. Anyway, enough stalling, let's get into this massive compilation of jank. So just to start off with, I'd like to give a bit of background about me. I'm an indie developer working on my first commercial release named Hypogean Descent. It's a Lovecraftian horror made in Unity. I'm doing this project solo. I make everything from the models, textures, sounds, and I program everything myself. But how did I get here? Well, a while ago I started my game development journey in college. For the first 2 years I studied game design and development at an entry level. After this I continued the same course onto university where I actually made the bulk of my games there. I studied for 5 years in total and I gathered a lot of experience over those years. I learnt a lot about what not to do, what I didn't like doing, where my strengths and weaknesses were, and importantly what the type of games I wanted to make. So let's actually start with the very first game I have footage of. This game is Rumpus Royale. It's a top-down twin stick shooter style game made for mobile and PC. Myself and a friend Chris made this together. He focused mainly on the programming, I focused on art, assets, mechanics and general design. We sort of designed this game just to be extremely simple as it was one of the first games we made, but we wanted to make it as fun as possible, so a lot of effort went into the weapon feel, the balancing, the enemies and the general gameplay loop. It's a really simple premise, just survive as long as you can and get the highest score. There's several weapons, power-ups such as a shield, speed boost, health boost, that kind of stuff. There's weapons such as a shotgun, machine gun, a pistol, and it's very basic. However, the difficulty slowly ramps up and it kind of gets exponentially harder, so it's not like a linear curve of difficulty, it just gets exponentially harder, making the very top scores really close to each other, which we found when we let our classmates play this and friends play this, they would often really compete for that top spot, and it was often like very close cut with who would be at the top score, which was just really fun. Now the game actually didn't have too many bugs and too many issues. It wasn't really like something you would play for a long time, but it was one of them things where like people would pick it up for like 20-30 minutes and just be like one more go, which was really rewarding to us because even though the game was really simple, it didn't have a lot of content, it proved to us that we could design something that was more-ish and really fun to play. Overall, I'm really happy with this game. Like, it looks okay, it plays good, it's fun, it's very simple. It's a really good way for me to test my skills in game development and learn a lot. I would actually like to revisit this at some point and make it into like a full-blown game, if not just like maybe remake it and add it as like a nice quick thing, something like, you know, Vampire Survivors, where you can play it for a long time but the gameplay loop's very simple. But yeah, on to the next one. So the second game on the list is an Unreal Engine shooter. I don't think I even named this game, it was just basically the brief was make a level, make a very simple mechanic that you can do inside that level and have an end to it. That was the point, you need an end goal. So I just made like a very simple, it's a shooter, and you just have to collect hidden gems in the level and then you unlock a door at the end which gets you out of this level, and that's the end of the game. So the premise is you're sort of in this like ruined place full of fog, it's very dense, it's hard to navigate, the map isn't actually that big, it's just very confusing, and that was intentional. And what I did was I took the Unreal assets, the base robot assets, sort of like the player character, and I matched the colour of the fog to their main armour colour, so they kind of look like robots. I'm sure everyone's familiar with these at this point, but the interesting thing with this is I made the fog so dense that when the enemies are out of sight, they're like basically completely hidden. Like, it matches with the armor and it matches with the fog and you just cannot see them. And with this I decided to put a slight horror spin on this, where I wanted it to be very high stakes, so when these robots see you, they can chase you down and they will absolutely destroy you. Like, it's quite unbalanced, but like I like it, it adds a lot of tension. You have limited bullets, limited resources, so your options either are save your bullets and try kill them, but if you run out, you're just going to have to run away with them. Now, the twist I did with the AI is they will follow you for a while, but once you're out of a certain range of them, instead of just going back to their patrol, they still pursue you, but what they do is they completely change direction. They'll just run back into the fog and find a really obtuse route back to you to try ambush you. So what would happen was people would run away from these robots and try get distance between them to get safe, and then they would turn around to take down the robot and realize it's not there, and that was added like a little bit of tension. And then all of a sudden, maybe like 20-30 seconds later, you'd just be exploring and they would just appear, like, and you wouldn't have seen them in the area. They just run back and it'd be very hard to tell where are they going, like, and they can hide in the ruins as well. It was a very, very janky, like I wasn't too great with Unreal Engine, and the balancing was a little bit off. It wasn't very fun to play, but those moments of tension I really, really enjoyed. It taught me a lot about designing systems in certain ways to all serve like a feeling and a certain like feel to the game. So I really should have leaned more into the horror aspect rather than the basic shooter aspect. But overall, I was kind of happy with it. I was really happy with my job that I did in the AI. Other than that, everything else could be vastly improved. So moving on to the third game. This game was called Purging. This is the first comprehensive game I made. It's a top-down hack and slash game where you play as a buff plague doctor who has to hunt down sinners, help the innocent, and help revitalize this town that's been taken over by eldritch beings. It was the first real game that had to have a story and an end goal. So the end goal could be a boss or end of level or cutscene or something like that. I decided to do a boss because it's something that I've always liked to add into games, and it's something that I never tried. So I had to really spend a lot of time making these multiple systems work together. So like, how do I pace a story within a game, and how do I tie gameplay into that? So it's like you get a good chunk of gameplay, then a good bit of story, and then rinse repeat, and then make the player understand what's going on and get invested in that world. The story is really basic. It's just as simple as you get a mission from this plague doctor. He tells you to go out and save the people from the town, kill the sinners, save the innocent, bring them back to this shrine where they can be healed. It had various enemy types that would act in different ways, which I was really happy with. The combat was probably the best I'd made. It was quite satisfying. The effects were a bit whack, like they were way too over the top, but I liked it at the time. I'd been playing a lot of Blasphemous, so I really wanted to make it bloody and punchy. I spent a lot of time on the environments too and the level design. I just really wanted to flesh out that sort of area of my game development because it was something that I just hadn't really tried. A lot of the previous projects had just been basic gameplay, get something that's workable and playable basically, but now I really want to focus on how do I make good gameplay and good environments and make it fun to play. Another really important element to this was building towards a climax, which was the boss fight. I made sort of like a bullet hell type boss, which I just thought would work really well in the top down style. It did actually work quite well. It was quite fun to play. All the boss's moves were quite readable, easy to avoid, but it could definitely take you down very, very quickly. I think I spread myself a little too thin in this project, which really hurt the overall quality of the game. Every mechanic, the story, the boss, the art, everything was sort of like undercooked, which I just didn't leave enough time for polish. I don't know why I thought I could just polish as I went along when everything wasn't working correctly, but this really, again, just taught me something really important about like start small and then polish that, because on my very first project on Rumpus Royale, the first game on this list, that was more polished, that was more fun to play, and I didn't like having a finished product where like some things were polished and some things were undercooked. So that was like the main thing I learned from this project. Always polish every element of your game, otherwise everything just lands a bit flat. But yeah, overall, there's a lot to improve on here. I do like the premise. It wasn't very original, but I liked it. I was really proud of my work. So yeah, let's move on to the next game. So moving on to the fourth game. This was another Unreal Engine project. This was called Project Elder. I think you're sensing a theme here. I really like Lovecraft, if that wasn't obvious. But the main premise of this game was to just test my ability to tell a story in a game. This was a group project as well. There was 4 of us working on this. This was a group project as well. I think there was 4 or 5 of us working on this. One guy handled art, one handled the story, one programming, and then I was doing the level design and the delivery of the story inside the game. The story of this is a little bit all over the place. It's one of the projects where like everyone just wants their elements in the game regardless of the end product. I was really firm on my Lovecraftian thing just because that's what I'm interested in, and I wouldn't budge from that, which I do actually think hurt the overall project. The overall story it's set during World War II, where the destruction of the Earth and sheer chaos humanity had caused had awakened an eldritch being, and the story focuses just after a calamity happens. After this eldritch being awakens, it destroys the majority of Europe, and the rival forces in the war are sort of pointing fingers at each other, assuming that the other has a secret weapon that has caused this destruction. However, all of them are oblivious to it's actually an eldritch being that caused the destruction. Your job is sort of to compile the evidence and the information and deliver that to sergeants, and then try get peace among the people to then fight against this eldritch being. Gameplay wise, we just really made a walking simulator and just had a heavy emphasis on the first area that you would start in the game. We wanted it to be sort of like very basic. You've seen this game time and time before. It's very much an asset flip, but again, you know, it was just a project where I just had to learn how to tell a story in the game. I think overall, I'm not really happy with this project. Like, I don't like walking simulators. I don't like games with no gameplay, and unfortunately the gameplay was just absent. It was just a snooze fest basically. Like, you just walk around, and if you're not engaged with the story, there's absolutely nothing for you there. So I would probably shy away from these kind of games in the future. I don't like them. I much prefer something with a heavy gameplay focus first, and then add an interesting story on top of that. Yeah, this taught me a lot about working in a group and what I don't like to do in games, and this is unfortunately like a completely underbaked product that I'm just completely not interested in. But you know, gotta fail sometimes. Anyway, let's move on swiftly to number 5. So, game number 5. This was a much better project than the previous. This was another group project. I think I was working with 4 people, and we all had our different roles. We had 2 programmers, 1 guy dedicated to art, and then myself, I did level design again and sort of tying everything together. I also did a lot of project management on this, which taught me a lot about actually pulling a team together and getting the end product done and staying on top of those deadlines. So the game itself is a twin stick shooter. It's quite basic in terms of combat, but the real highlight here is the spell system. Myself and Chris sort of designed this system to be a way you could make your own spells in the engine. Now, you couldn't make them in game, but it was a way so the designer, like me and Martin, could just go in and make our own spells. And that was really, really fun. That was such a great experience, like learning how to make a more comprehensive system that could be usable time and time again after you've made your initial spells. So unfortunately we aimed way too high with this project. There was a lot of friction in the team in terms of design ideas and just general design principles, and it was another one of the things where we just wouldn't budge. I was really set on a certain gameplay style that I just thought would work, and another person on the team was set on their design style and they thought theirs would work better, and it was very, very difficult to find common ground. We spent a lot of time just bickering over things that probably didn't matter. I think everyone just lost sight on the overall goal. I feel like this was probably an element of too many chefs in the kitchen and probably not communicating properly. We all just wanted to deliver the best game, but we all had different ideas on how to get there. But you know, overall, I think the gameplay is good. The overall design is good. It's quite fun to play, if not a little bit janky. Again, we just aimed way too high with our expectations for this project. We all learned a lot from this. We sort of understood how we all work after that, and I think we came off on better terms. Like, you've got to have those difficult conversations and frictions in a team to like understand how everyone works, you know. I think it would have been a lot better if we'd all just stayed in our lane and just committed to a more developed idea before we jumped into development. It would have made the process a lot more streamlined, which, you know, is something that I need to learn if I'm ever going to work with other people again, which I will. So yeah, overall, product was good. Very, very janky, very buggy, but the real highlight for me is just the spell system. It's making that system usable and modular. That is something I've taken forward into my own games after this project. Okay, so moving on to the next project. So game number 6, this is Project Cargo. This is a game I'm extremely proud of. This was my first horror game that was completely focused on just horror. I actually joined a university game jam to do this, and myself, Chris, and 3 other people put our heads together to make a game within 48 hours. The premise of this game is that you're a security guard working late night shift at a shipment dock. Your job is to monitor the security footage, review the previous night tapes, and ensure everything is as it should be. Now the twist on this is that the security footage from the previous night has been replaced with tapes from a killer's crimes, and these crimes have taken place within the shipping dock that you're working at. The idea is you review the footage and then go to those locations and try find out what's going on. You find evidence of the crimes and quite grotesque scenes, and the game sort of comes to a climax where you find a mysterious tape at the end, you put it in, and this documents your death, and then at the end of the game you end up dying to the killer. Something that we focused on this was making a very simple art style that could be made quickly because we only had 48 hours and it looked good. We really wanted to lean into that trend of the VHS horror type thing at the time, and we were all really interested in that. We're all on the same wavelength, which really helped development. You can't really waste time arguing if you only have 48 hours to make a game. I was really happy with this. It worked really well. And when we presented it to the other groups at the end of the game jam, everyone was pretty spooked. It was the only horror game out of all of the other games in that game jam, and there was some really good and interesting games on there. But to see people's reaction to a simple short game and it actually scared them and give them a bit of a spook was really satisfying for me as someone who loves horror. But yeah, we came second in that competition. We lost out to a game that was more gameplay focused that was also really good, and we were awarded a pack of ramen for our efforts. But yeah, that was a fantastic experience. It's again something I'd probably like to revisit and really get it up to a production standard, maybe put it out like on Steam or itch.io or something like that. But it's something to revisit in the future. Overall, probably one of my favourite games I've ever worked on. Okay, so moving on to the final game in this list. So my first actual game post-university that I released onto itch.io is called I Challenge You. I went all back to the basics, stripped back right to the basics, and made the most simple game I could think of, which is rock, paper, scissors or snap. So the idea is both play rival mage against each other. All you have to do is just be the first to shoot each other. Now the twist on this is the way that you shoot is locked behind. You can only shoot when you're told to. So this random generator comes up with a card at the top that will say yes, no, don't attack, attack, and you have to react to that and shoot each other. If you are the last one to shoot, you take damage. If you're the first one to shoot, then you don't take any damage and you deal damage to the player. If you shoot when you're told not to shoot, you take damage, and you have 3 hearts each. So once those hearts are up, the other person loses. So it's a game focused more on reaction and mind games. And I sort of made it as like an argument settler. So like it could be a thing where you and your friend are having like a bit of a, stupid argument. So you pull out this game and just settle it with a game of rock, paper, scissors or snap or something like that. It worked really well. It was very simple. It was fairly well polished. It worked quite well. As basic as it was, though, you did find people getting weirdly very competitive. I think if you put something in front of each other where you can taunt each other in game and just go at each other with the mind games, it becomes very competitive. Overall, I was really happy with this. The gameplay is extremely simple. The art's not great. It has like basically no replay value unless you're really into that kind of competitive couch co-op thing. But it was the reactions of the players that did play it that I really liked. Watching my friends and family just get really competitive over something so simple. And I actually still have this installed on my phone. And every now and again I do actually get it out and challenge my friend to a game and just see what fun we can get out of it. But yeah, that was the first one after university, and I'm quite happy with it. So that's pretty much all the footage I have to show of the games I've made over the years. I do have many other projects that I've worked on, but like I said, be grateful because they're even worse than what I've just shown you. I'm just going to quickly run through a couple of other projects that I've made during university, some after university, just to learn various stuff. So I made a animation in Maya of Sir Dan from Medieval, which is the first task I had, just to rig and model and animate something. It's pretty horrible, but you know, we all start somewhere. I made a scene in Maya again, which was supposed to be like a witch hut that was very restrictive on its brief. It needed to be like a specific style, add in specific things, and this was just a task to see if I could make something that fulfilled a brief for a client. I spent some time learning some various things from Unity, such as the 2D lights when they got released. So I just made this quick pixel art scene, and this was one of the projects where I realised I really don't like doing pixel art and I'm not very good at it, so that's when I decided to stick to 3D games. Something else I made was just a forest scene. I've always liked making fantasy environments. Every year I go back and try to do like a speed level creation to see how my level design skills are getting, but I just wanted to make something that had like a modular post-processing system as well, so I could like change from a basic forest into like something that was more magical. This was inspired by Outward. I don't know if you guys have ever played that game, but I'd fully recommend it. It's a great experience. But yeah, that was something that just that programming skill took me forward into other projects. So for those of you keeping up with the channel, you know that I've been working on Hypogean Descent for just over a year now. Progress is going really, really well, and all of my previous projects has been taken into this one. All my experience, all my failings, everything I've learned has gone into this, and it really, really shows. The overall quality really shows that I've learned a lot of these couple of years, and I do feel really confident in my ability now to make this game. But something you might not know is that actually Stygian Arc is a two-man studio. Myself and Chris, the guy I met in university, we worked on projects all the time in university, and we really found that we work well together. He's a fantastic programmer, he's really got a good head for design, and I'm more of the level design, the assets, the sound and general design of things. So we actually did try and make a project for Stygian Arc, which was not Hypogean Descent. This was called Project VHS, which is based on the Wreck movie, where you just find like tapes, review them, and weird stuff happens. Basically, it was a horror game. Surprise, surprise. You know, we like horror games here. The issue with this was we bit off way more than we could chew. It was issues with not only just the amount of content we would have to make, but making that content good. But there was also the issue of we just have different schedules, different lives, so it didn't really work out. Like, progress was really, really slow. It was a lot of back and forth, and there was no consistent progress on the project, which really bothered us both. So for now, Chris is working on his own solo games, I'm working on mine. I fortunately have more free time than Chris and more consistent free time than Chris, so we can't actually work on a project together right now. But the plan is, once Hypogean Descent's done with, we do have a project planned after that, which will be our first game as a full studio, just the two of us working on a game that will be bigger and better, and we'll have both heads together. The goal for us is to work together on games all the time and just get better and better as we go along, until, you know, we make games we're extremely proud of and, you know, received well. We would like to go full time, but you know, that's everyone's dream. But we sort of take the approach of we're going to make good games regardless, and we want to make games together. We have similar ideas, we share similar values, we have a similar work ethic, and we communicate really, really well. But if we never make it full time, if we never make any money from this, it doesn't matter. We just want to make games. The only difference will be is if we go full time in game development, the games will come out quicker and we'll have more resources to play with, but regardless, we'll still make them. So that brings me to the end of the video. I think overall, my journey through game development has been like troublesome. I'm sure like everyone has had you know, their successes and failures, but the most important thing is to, one, keep going, and two, keep learning from everything you do. Learn from the successes, learn from the mistakes, and just analyze everything you're doing, and you will get better. In regards to Hypogean Descent, I'm still working on it. I'm kind of in the final stretch to getting the demo complete. I do have a rough timeline for when I want that demo available. I am in for this year. I just really want the product to be polished and a good base and a good idea of what you're going to get from the full product. I don't want to release something that's not polished and not representative of the whole product, because the feedback I get will just be not as good, I don't think, and I might be shooting myself in the foot by releasing too early. But as always, thanks for sticking with me, thanks for the support. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. I'd be interested to hear if you guys are either gamers or game developers or both. I'd be interested to see some of your projects, so if you want to join the Discord, you can drop them in there, like maybe put some videos, some pictures, something like that. Yeah, be sure to subscribe and stick around for more Stygian Arc content, and I'll see you on the next one.